If I were to ask you to close your eyes right now, just block out the world for a second and try to conjure up the absolute sonic equivalent of the American Rust Belt. I'm talking about that specific mix of grit, asphalt, gray skies, and industrial decline. What do you hear?
Well, for millions of people, it's not a factory whistle.
No.
It isn't the sound of an engine turning over. It's a voice.
A very specific voice.
A voice that sounds like it's been smoking unfiltered cigarettes and driving a semi-truck across the Midwest since it was like 12 years old.
That is the perfect description. It's raspy, it's powerful, and it just feels so lived in.
Right.
We are talking, of course, about Bob Seger, and I know what a lot of you are probably thinking. Bob Seger, the old-time rock and roll guy, the guy who sold Chevy trucks in the 90s.
And that immediate reaction, that assumption that he's just a classic rock radio staple, is exactly why we need to do this deep dive.
It really is.
Because on the surface, Seger looks like the ultimate establishment rock star. He sold over 75 million records.
An insane number.
He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. His hits, Night Moves, Turn the Page, Against the Wind, they are so deeply embedded in the cultural DNA.
They feel inevitable, like they've just always been there.
Exactly, inevitable. But when you actually peel back the layers of the source material we have today, the story isn't about inevitability at all. It's the complete opposite. It's about a grueling, near impossible grind.
We often hear the phrase overnight success in the music industry, but Bob Seger is the definition of the opposite. He was a 20-year overnight success.
It's a study in resilience, really. That's the fascinating part. We're going to look at a guy who was a massive celebrity in Detroit.
I mean, Elvis-level famous.
Right, in one city.
Yeah.
But he was a complete ghost everywhere else for a decade. We're going to unpack bankrupt record labels, financial disasters, missed opportunities with Motown.
And some business decisions that, on paper, look absolutely insane.
Like fighting to keep his music on 8-track tapes long after the format was completely dead, which, as we'll see, was actually a stroke of genius when you think about audience psychology.
So our mission today is to move past the greatest hits playlist and understand the mechanics of his career. How do you survive that much failure and still come out as a global icon?
It's an amazing story.
Let's rewind the tape. Let's go to Detroit, 1945.
This is where the context is everything. Seger is born right at Henry Ford Hospital. You literally cannot get more Motor City than that.
It's so on brand, it hurts.
And his father was a medical technician for Ford Motor Company.
But this wasn't just a factory family, was it? There was music in the house early on.
Right. His father played several instruments, clarinet, guitar, piano. So Seger is surrounded by this duality from day one, the heavy industry of Detroit and the creative escape of music.
A real push and pull.
But the pivotal moment in the timeline, the thing that changes everything, it isn't a musical one, it's a traumatic one. It happens in 1956. Seger is 10 years old.
This is the catalyst event.
His father abandons the family. He just leaves, moves to California. And this isn't just an emotional blow for a 10-year-old kid. It's an economic catastrophe.
They go from middle class to what?
To genuine poverty, almost overnight. The family goes from a comfortable middle-class existence, and suddenly they're moving into a tiny apartment. Money is incredibly tight. It was a slide into financial struggle that absolutely defined his adolescence.
Which I think is such a critical filter for understanding his later lyrics,
Oh, absolutely.
Critics love to throw around terms like Heartland rock or blue-collar themes as if it's a costume or some kind of marketing angle.
Right, like a gimmick.
But for Seger, that slide into financial struggle was his lived reality. He wasn't role-playing the underdog.
No, he was living it. And naturally, he looked for an escape. He found in the same place a lot of kids in the mid-50s did, the radio.
Of course.
He cites Little Richard and Elvis Presley as the voices that really cut through all the noise for him. The first record he ever bought with his own money was Come Go With Me by the Del Vikings in 1957.
So you have this collision of forces. You've got the desperation of poverty, the abandonment by the father figure, and then the explosive, rebellious energy of early rock and R&B.
That is a potent cocktail for a songwriter.
Has to be.
It forged a work ethic that defined his entire career. He starts playing, and we enter what I call the Battle of the Bands era.
Right.
And looking at the notes here, I was honestly shocked by the sheer volume of bands he cycled through. This wasn't a straight line to stardom by any means.
It's a maze. It starts in 1961 with a band called the Decibels. He's 16 years old, playing guitar, piano, singing. He's doing everything.
And they record an acetate demo, a song called The Lonely One.
Just for clarity, an acetate isn't a vinyl record you'd buy in a store, right?
Not at all. It's a soft, temporary disc, usually used for test pressings. It wears out after just a few plays. But somehow this kid manages to get it played on a local radio station.
Once.
Laughs? Yes, exactly once. But you have to think about the dopamine hit for a teenager. That one spin probably fueled him for the next 3 years.
No doubt. So he moves on to the Town Criers, and then a band called the Omens. They're grinding out covers, doing Louie Louie, just playing the local circuit.
Just paying their dues.
But there is a detail in this era that just stopped me cold. We think of Seger as this soulful, serious, voice of the people guy.
Yeah.
But in the mid-'60s, he gets involved in a political parody song incident. What is that about?
This is one of those bizarre footnotes that history almost completely forgot. Okay, so context.
Yeah.
It's the Vietnam era. There's a song by Staff Sergeant Barry Sadler called Ballad of the Green Berets.
I know it. It's hyper-patriotic, very pro-military, and it was a massive #1 hit.
A monster hit. And Seger, or the band he was with, decides to poke the bear.
How so?
He records a parody called Ballad of the Yellow Beret.
Yellow implying cowardice. So he was mocking draft dodger.
He was mocking draft evaders, yes. It was a conservative satire. But the career lesson here wasn't political, it was legal. Barry Sadler and his record label slammed them with a cease and desist order immediately. The recording was withdrawn. The whole thing was over before it started.
And a harsh lesson in copyright law for a young kid.
A very harsh lesson. But amidst the parodies and the cover bands, he makes the single most important connection of his entire career.
He meets Edward Punch Andrews.
If you are studying the business of Bob Seger, Punch Andrews is the co-pilot. He was running the hideout clubs in Detroit, these teen clubs where the local scene really thrived.
He was the guy.
He becomes Seger's manager, and they form a partnership that lasts literally forever. It's one of the longest-running artist-manager relationships in rock history.
So together they launch Bob Seger and the Last Herd.
And this is where the music starts to get real. They record East Side Story, which sells 50,000 copies locally.
Which is a massive number for a local independent release at that time.
It's huge. It gets them noticed by a label called Cameo Parkway. And this leads us to the great what if of Seger's early career. The year is 1967. They release a track called Heavy Music.
Just the title, Heavy Music, it sounds like a mission statement.
It was. It had this deep, driving soul sound. It was distinct from all the British invasion stuff. It was pure Detroit grit. And it takes off.
It's happening.
It breaks the top 100 in Canada. It's bubbling under the charts in the U.S. It is outselling everything he's done before. The rocket is on the launch pad. The engines are firing.
On the launch pad explodes.
Cameo Parkway goes bankrupt. The label folds.
Yeah.
Overnight. Gone.
So you have a hit record that nobody can buy because the company distributing it literally ceases to exist.
That's the nightmare scenario. Distribution stops.
Yeah.
Promotion stops. The song dies on the vine. It would stay in his live set list for years as this like local legend of a song, but as a commercial breakthrough, it was gone.
That has to be absolutely devastating. You finally get the shot, you see the door opening, and then the entire building collapses.
But he doesn't quit. He pivots. 1968. He needs a new home. And the notes say he actually had an offer from Motown.
The Motown.
In Detroit. He did. And this is fascinating because Motown actually offered him more money. But Seger turns them down to sign with Capitol Records.
Why? I mean, Motown was Detroit. It was the biggest label in the world.
He felt Capitol was a better fit for where he wanted to go artistically. He was moving toward a heavier rock sound, a grittier sound.
And he was worried he'd get lost in the Motown machine.
He worried he'd be the odd man out at Motown, which was known for that polished, perfect R&B pop soul machine. He wanted to be a rock artist. So Capitol rebrands the band as the Bob Seger System.
Which sounds very late 60s psychedelic.
Very.
Yeah.
And they come out swinging with a track called 2+2.
Oh, Death Equation.
It's actually a vehement anti-war song, a really powerful one. So contrast this with the Yellow Beret parody from just a couple of years prior.
He shifted his stance significantly.
Hugely. The song hits #1 in Buffalo and Orlando. Again, these weird little pockets of fame, but it doesn't break nationally. But then, 1969, they finally land the punch. Ramblin Gamblin Man.
I was listening to this track preparing for the show, and the energy is just undeniable. That organ riff.
It's iconic.
And there is a cameo on this track that blew my mind. The backing vocals and acoustic guitar are provided by a local Detroit kid named Glenn Frey.
The future Eagle himself. They were friends in the local scene. Frey was just starting out, And that connection, Seger and Frey, is a thread that weaves through the next 20 years of rock history. It's a really important relationship.
So Ramblin Gamblin Man hits number 17 nationally. This is it, right? He's finally made it.
You would think. But in the Bob Seger story, every single peak is followed by a valley.
Why?
There's a false summit.
What happened?
They release follow-up albums, Noah and Mongrel, and they just tank. Noah doesn't even chart. Mongrel sells poorly despite having a great track, Lucifer. The momentum from the hit single just evaporates.
It got so bad that he actually quit the music industry.
He walked away completely. He enrolled in college.
I love the image of this. You're sitting in a lecture hall, maybe taking a history exam, and the guy next to you is the guy who sang Ramblin Gamblin Man on the radio last year.
It speaks to how precarious the industry was back then. You could have a top 20 hit and still be broke enough to need a degree a year later.
But obviously, the academic life didn't stick.
Couldn't stay away.
This brings us to what I call the wilderness years, the early 70s. If the 60s were a struggle, the early 70s seem aimless. He tries to be a folk singer.
The acoustic phase.
Yeah.
He releases Brand New Morning in 1971. It's just him, a guitar, a piano. It's a total commercial failure.
And he leaves Capitol Records after that.
He's cut loose. He's wandering. He joins up with a duo called Teagarden Van Winkle to release an album called Smokin' OPs.
Which stands for other people's songs, right? Because it was mostly covers.
Exactly. He's just treading water, trying to find a direction. But then we get to 1973. He's trying to record a new album called Back in 72. And he makes a decision that changes his sound, even if it completely broke his bank account.
He decides he needs the Muscle Shoals rhythm section.
The Swampers. The guys who played on Aretha Franklin's records. Wilson Pickett. The deepest groove in the entire business.
But Seger is not Aretha Franklin.
No, he's a broke regional musician from Michigan. He calls them up and asks about their rates, and they tell him it's $1,500 a side.
Okay, so in vinyl terms, a side is half an album. Maybe 5 or 6 songs. So $1,500 sounds like a lot for 1973, but it's manageable if you get half your album done, right?
That is exactly what Bob Seger thought.
Yeah.
He scrapes the money together, drives all the way down to Alabama, walks into the legendary Muscle Shoals sound studio, and they record 3 songs.
And they sound amazing, I assume.
Unbelievable. Then he says, okay, that was great, let's keep going. And they just look at him and say, what do you mean, you're out of money?
Oh, no.
The misunderstanding was just tragic. When they said $1,500 a side, they meant a side of a single.
One song.
One song, $1,500 per song.
So he was operating on album math, and they were operating on singles math.
Precisely. He was mortified. He had to pack up his gear and leave because he couldn't pay for another minute in the studio.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. But this is the silver lining. One of those 3 songs he managed to get in the can before he ran out of cash was Turn the Page.
The saxophone intro heard round the world.
The definitive road anthem. And think about the irony of it. A song about the grueling, lonely, financially punishing nature of the music business was recorded in a session he had to abort because he was too broke to finish it.
You can't fake that. That adds a layer of authenticity you just can't buy.
It's baked right in.
He vowed to work with them again, but he had to retreat back to Detroit. And this retreat leads to a realization, doesn't it?
It does.
He can't keep hiring expensive session guys or jumping into other people's bands. He needs a unit. He needs a gang.
Enter the Silver Bullet Band, 1974. He finally puts together a permanent killer road band. He recruits local Detroit guys, Drew Abbott on guitar, Chris Campbell on bass, and crucially, Alto Reed on sax.
The man behind the Turn the Page intro.
The very same. He returns to Capitol Records, essentially hat in hand, saying, I'm ready now, I've got the band. And they release Beautiful Loser in 1975.
And Kathmandu comes off that record. It breaks the dry spell a little bit.
It did. It was a top 50 hit and kept the lights on. But the studio albums still weren't capturing the magic. Seger was a beast on stage. He was an animal. In the studio, he was sometimes a bit restrained.
They needed to bottle the lightning.
And so they did what Frampton did, what Kiss did, what every struggling live act did in the mid-70s. They recorded a live album, Live Bullet, September 1975, Cobo Hall, Detroit.
This is widely considered one of the greatest live albums ever committed to tape.
It's a monster. There's a quote from the music critic Dave Marsh about this album. He wrote that Seger sounded like a man with one last shot at the top.
And you can hear that desperation. The energy isn't just, let's have a good time, it's listen to me or I'm going to die trying.
The audience response in Detroit is rabid. They're screaming every single word. But here is the statistic that completely blew my mind regarding this era. It illustrates the regional fame trap perfectly.
Okay, lay it on me.
So Live Bullet comes out. It's selling like crazy in Michigan, Ohio, that whole area. In 1976, Seger plays a headline show at the Pontiac Silverdome in Detroit. He plays to nearly 80,000 people.
80,000! That's Super Bowl numbers. That's Taylor Swift numbers.
It's a stadium full of people who see him as a god.
Yeah.
The very next night, he drives a few hours west of Chicago, a major American city. Not the boonies.
Right, a huge market.
He plays a show there.
How many people do you think showed up?
I mean, if you have 80,000 in Detroit, maybe 10,000, even 5,000.
Fewer than 1,000.
What?
Less than 1,000 people.
That is physically painful to even visualize, going from a stadium roar to the echo of a half-empty club in 24 hours.
That was his life for years. He was a god in Michigan and a nobody in Illinois. He was the king of the Midwest, but the kingdom had very, very strict borders.
He needed a bridge to get over that wall. He needed a passport to the rest of the country.
And that passport was Night Moves, 1976.
This was the moment. This was everything. The title track, Night Moves, hits number 4 on the Billboard Pop Singles chart. The album sells 6 million copies. It wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural phenomenon.
Let's talk about that song for a second, Night Moves. It's structurally so interesting. It starts with that acoustic strum, but it's the lyrics that really landed. Started humming a song from 1962.
It's a song about memory. He wrote it when he was entering his 30s, looking back at his teenage years. It captured that specific wistfulness of American youth, the points of my own, the front seat, back seat.
It felt true.
It resonated because it felt specific to him, yet completely universal. And Main Street, which is also on that album, does the exact same thing.
Main Street is about Ann Street in Ann Arbor, Michigan, right?
Exactly. He was mining his own geography, his own memories. And suddenly, people in Chicago, people in L.A., people in New York, they all heard their own Main Street in it. That album finally balanced the scales. He wasn't just a Detroit act anymore. He was an American artist.
So he's a star. The struggle is technically over. He's made it. But that doesn't mean the weird business decisions stopped.
Not by a long shot.
We moved to 1978. The album Stranger in Town, another massive album. Still the same. Hollywood Nights, We've Got Tonight.
We've Got Tonight is a masterpiece of a ballad. Kenny Rogers and Sheena Easton covered it later and had a massive hit with it all over again. The songwriting was just top tier.
But there is one track on Stranger in Town that serves as a cautionary tale for every aspiring musician listening right now.
Oh, this one hurts.
Old-time rock and roll.
This is the ouch moment of the career.
Yeah.
A big one.
So the song is iconic, but Seger didn't write it from scratch, did he?
No. The Muscle Shoals writers, the great George Jackson and Thomas E. Jones III, sent him the demo. Seger listened to it. He liked the chorus, but he hated the verses.
So he rewrote them.
And not just a tweak here or there. He substantially rewrote the lyrics.
Just take those old records off the shelf. I'll sit and listen to them by myself. Those are Seger's lines.
Yes, those iconic lines are him. Because of his significant contribution, the original writers offered him a 1/3 writing credit.
Meaning he would get 33% of the publishing royalties for the rest of time.
Yes.
And he said no.
He declined it. He turned it down.
Why on earth would he do that after all that struggle for money and recognition?
Nobody knows for sure. Maybe he didn't think the song fit his serious songwriter vibe. Maybe he just thought it was a fun throwaway track that wouldn't chart. He felt it was their song, and his changes were just a favor.
A very, very expensive favor, it turns out.
Because then the movie Risky Business comes out a few years later. Tom Cruise slides across the floor in his underwear.
And the song becomes immortal.
It became the second most played jukebox single of all time. We are talking about millions and millions of dollars in royalties generated over decades, from radio play, commercials, movies.
And Bob Seger gets
Zero. Zero for the songwriting. He gets his mechanical royalties as the performer, of course. But the real generational money in music is in the publishing.
And he gave it away.
He later called it, and this is a direct quote, financially the dumbest thing I ever did.
It's just a stark reminder that you can be an artistic genius and still make a colossal blunder on the paperwork. But to be fair, he did have other revenue streams.
He did.
We mentioned Glenn Frey earlier. That friendship paid dividends in the late 70s.
It was a very profitable friendship. Seger co-wrote the Eagles' #1 hit, Heartache Tonight.
So think about that. Even when he's not singing, he's cashing checks from the biggest band in the world.
Right, and the collaboration went both ways. When Seger recorded the album Against the Wind in 1980, he needed some backing vocals for a song called Fire Lake. Who do you think he calls?
He calls his buddies the Eagles.
He gets Don Henley, Timothy B. Schmidt, and Glenn Frey. That is a pretty high-end backing choir you got there.
Against the Wind was massive. His first #1 album, it won 2 Grammys. He is untouchable at this point.
On top of the world.
But I want to jump to 1982, the album The Distance. There's a story here involving 8-track takes that I think explains Bob Seger better than any lyric ever could.
I love this story. It's so telling. So set the scene. It's 1982. The 8-track tape is a dead format. It is a dinosaur.
It's over.
Cassettes have completely taken over the portable market. Vinyl is for home use. So Capitol Records tells Seger, we're releasing the new album on LP and cassette. That's it, no 8-track.
Which makes total business sense. Why manufacture a product that nobody uses anymore?
Seger pushes back. Hard. He insists. He demands an 8-track release.
Why?
He tells the executives, essentially, you guys live in L.A. and New York. You don't know my fans. My fans are driving 10-year-old pickup trucks. They haven't upgraded their stereos yet. They are still listening to 8 tracks on the way to the factory.
That is an incredible level of awareness.
Yeah.
He forced a major corporation to support obsolete technology because he knew exactly what the dashboard of a 1972 Ford F-150 looked like.
And you know what? He was right. They released it on 8-track, and his fans bought it. It shows that he wasn't just singing at the working class. He was truly, deeply connected to how they actually lived their lives.
That's loyalty. Speaking of trucks, we have to address the elephant in the room, or rather, the Chevy in the room.
Yeah.
For an entire generation of TV watchers in the 80s and 90s, Bob Seger was the voice of Chevrolet, like a rock.
You literally could not watch a football game or a baseball game in the 1990s without seeing a truck climbing a mountain in slow motion while Seger's voice roared in the background. It was everywhere.
Nowadays, licensing your music for a commercial is standard. It's just part of the business. But back then, didn't he catch a lot of flack for selling out?
He did, from critics. Rock purists were not happy. But Seger's reasoning was, again, very specific to his background and his worldview. He didn't just do it for the check, though I'm sure the check was very, very nice.
What was the real motivation then?
He did it because he saw the American auto industry getting hammered by foreign competition. He saw factories closing in Detroit. He wanted to lend his voice to a campaign that celebrated American manufacturing and American workers.
So it was an act of solidarity with his hometown.
Exactly. In his mind, he viewed it as supporting the guys on the assembly line, the same kind of job his dad had, not just supporting a corporation. And that campaign ran for over a decade. It kept him in the public consciousness during a time when his new music was starting to fade from the charts.
He also became something of a soundtrack king in the 80s. Shakedown from Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Which brings us full circle with the Eagles connection again. It's amazing how intertwined they were. Shakedown was written for Glenn Frey. Frey was supposed to sing it for the movie. But right before the recording session, Frey loses his voice. He gets laryngitis.
Can't sing a note.
So he calls Seger and says, can you pinch hit for me? I'm in a jam.
And Seger steps in.
Seger steps in, rewrites the verses to fit his own style, keeps the chorus, and boom, it goes to #1 on the pop charts. It becomes his only #1 pop single.
The guy who couldn't get a break for 15 years ends up getting a #1 hit because his buddy had a sore throat.
The universe has a strange sense of humor, doesn't it?
It really does. So as we move into the 90s and the 2000s, the output slows down quite a bit. He takes a long hiatus to raise his kids, which is admirable.
From 1997 to 2005, he's basically just a dad. He stepped off the treadmill completely. He wasn't chasing the spotlight anymore. When he came back with the album Face the Promise in 2006, it felt like he was totally on his own terms.
And we should probably touch on his politics briefly because we mentioned the yellow beret thing from the 60s. Where did he land as an adult?
He describes himself as a centrist, right down the middle. He supported Hillary Clinton. He spoke very highly of Obama, but he's always focused more on the working person rather than a specific party line.
He's still engaged, though.
Oh, yeah. On his 2014 album, Ride Out, he actually tackled climate change in a song called It's Your World. He also addressed gun violence. So he's engaged with the world, but he's not a partisan warrior.
He finally hung it up recently with the Ramblin Man Farewell Tour, which wrapped up in 2019. It really does feel like the end of an era.
It is. But he went out selling out arenas exactly the way he wanted to, on top.
So when we look at this entire arc, from that one acetate demo of The Lonely One to selling out the Silver Dome, from the poverty of his childhood to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, what is the big takeaway here? What's the lesson?
For me, it's the value of the long game. It's something that I think we've lost. We live in a viral era now. Kids want to be famous by Tuesday. Bob Seger recorded his first demo in 1961. He didn't have night moves until 1976. That is 15 years of grinding. 15 years of bad food, cheap motels, failed bands, and playing to completely empty rooms.
But here's the question. Do you think he writes Turn the Page without those 15 years?
Absolutely not. Do you think a song like Beautiful Loser has the same weight if he hadn't been a loser for a while? The struggle was the forge. It created the character that the audience eventually fell in love with.
The delay was crucial.
If he had hit big with heavy music in 1967, maybe he burns out. Maybe he becomes a completely different, less interesting artist. The delay was the making of him.
That is a powerful thought. The struggle wasn't an obstacle, it was the essential ingredient.
Precisely. It was the whole recipe.
I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought. We talked about the old-time rock and roll mistake, him losing the writing credit and all that money. But at the end of the day, does it really matter?
It's an interesting question.
When that opening piano riff hits at a wedding or a bar or in a movie, nobody stops dancing to check the copyright information. They just know it's Bob Seger.
That's the power of performance. He owns the soul of the song, even if he doesn't own the paper it's written on.
And I wonder, in today's algorithm-driven music industry, does the 20-year overnight success model even exist anymore? Can an artist survive 2 failed albums and a label bankruptcy and still be allowed to grow into a global icon?
Or would the data just bury them?
Exactly. Seeger's career suggests that the deepest connections with an audience are built through decades of just showing up, of grinding on the road, not just a single viral moment that fades in a week.
It's a question worth asking. I'm not sure the modern industry has the patience for a Bob Seger. It's a different world.
So if you haven't listened to Live Bullet in a while, or maybe ever, do yourself a favor today, put it on, turn it up, and listen to the sound of a guy who knows he has one last shot at the title.
It is worth every single second.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next one.